Therefore I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living and holy sacrifice, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect. Paul's urged us to do this. Paul's admonished us to do this. But from where do we gain the motivation? When you hear me say, and repeat what Paul is saying, that we should give our lives as a living sacrifice to God, most of you are in hearty agreement. You agree that's the thing that ought to be done. So that's not the problem. The problem is, but where do I find the motivation? Where do I find the impulse? Where do I find the strength? Where do I find a passion that endures, that continues, so that daily I'm laying down my life, so that daily I'm following Him, so that daily I'm pressing on to know the Lord and to be more useful in His service? Brother Paul, I agree that that's what we ought to do. But I find that I lack the strength and the motivation, the force of will to do it. Now, let me simplify what I'm saying. You should love God more. Is that not true? You should love God more. I should love God more than I do. I should. We all recognize that. You know, a horrible thing a preacher can do is tell you, you need to love God more, but then not tell you how to find a greater love for God. It's like telling someone something they ought to do and then not telling them how to do it, and leaving them there stuck between two opinions, helpless. Well, I'm going to tell you that you need to love God more, that you need to be more passionate about God. You need to be more devoted to God. You need to be more given over to God. But I'm not going to leave you there. I'm now going to tell you how that can be accomplished. And it's not a quick fix. It's something that requires endurance, but it is something that can transform your life over time. And it's found in this text. Look what he says. Therefore, I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living and holy sacrifice. What are we to do? Present our bodies a living and holy sacrifice. From where does the motivation come? By the mercies of God. Now, what does he mean? The more you understand and comprehend, the more you sound the depths of the mercies of God toward you, the more you will be motivated and strengthened to present your life to Him as a living sacrifice. Or in other words, let me put it this way. The more you understand the mercies of God toward you as they are revealed in the cross, in the gospel work of Jesus Christ, the more empowered you will be to actually grow in devotion and grow in laying down your life for Him. That's what he's saying. By the mercies of God, by your comprehension of these things, by these things becoming greater and greater realities in your life, you will begin to be like the Apostle Paul, constrained to present yourself to Christ, constrained to follow Him. Now, I want you to see something that's very important here. If you have the New American Standard or even other translations, it begins here in my English text, therefore. Therefore, I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies a living and holy sacrifice. What must we do? Present our bodies a living and holy sacrifice. Where do we find the motivation for doing that? By sounding the depths, growing in our understanding of the mercies of God revealed in the person and work of Jesus Christ. Now, the word therefore, that little preposition, is absolutely essential. Because here's what Paul is doing. Therefore, I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God. The mercies of God here have just been defined for you in the first 11 chapters of the book of Romans. And what Paul is doing is basically this. For 11 chapters, I have shared with you the mercies of God as they are revealed in the person and work of Christ. Now, based upon what God has done for you in Christ, the greatness of this work, I want you now to present your life as a living and holy sacrifice. Do you see that? This is very common for Paul. In the book of Ephesians, we find the very same thing in chapter 4. In the first 3 chapters of Ephesians, we have the deepest theology in all the Bible. You want to know where the deep stuff is, go to Ephesians 1, 2, and 3. It's absolutely astounding. And how does he begin in Ephesians 1? In Christ, in Christ, in Christ, in Christ, in Christ. Everything that God has done for us in Christ. And basically those 3 chapters are revealing to us everything God's done for us in the person of His Son. I like to say it this way. Outside of the Son, you have nothing. In the Son, you have all things. You have no part with God apart from the Son. But in the Son, God is yours. And you are God's. And all the mercies that you will not even be able to discover over in a life of eternity. All the mercies of God are yours in Jesus Christ, he says in Ephesians 1 through 3. And then he gets to 4 and he says, now, therefore, live this way. And what does that tell me? The more, and I know I sound like a broken record, but there's a purpose. The more I begin to comprehend the mercy and the grace of God in Jesus Christ, not just past mercies, not just present mercies, but even future grace, future mercies that are going to be granted to me throughout all of eternity. The more I understand all of this and how it comes to me only in the death of Christ, the more I am now empowered to live my life. You see, that's why Paul talks about in 2 Corinthians 5 that he was constrained, that the love of Christ constrained him. It defined him. It pushed him forward. Everything that he was, it was motivated by his understanding of what God had done for him in Christ.